Welcome back to Bless Your Heart. I'm talking. This is your host, Zeta. And do I have a show for y'all? Today, I want to talk a little bit about things that are in the past, things that we have left behind, things that have left the building. So when you think of things that are in the past, I'm talking simple, everyday things. And I just started thinking, being 50 years old, I've seen a lot of changes in my life, but as y'all know, I've been going down this rabbit hole of family history, and as I do that, I think about how things have changed for some of these people, particularly my family that were born in the 1800s and lived through, let's say, the 80s, 1980s, and because I'm old enough that my great-grandparents were primarily born in the late 1800s or the early 1900s. Like almost all of my great-grandparents were born between like 1888 and like 1910. Pretty much all of them. And so all the things that they saw change. And can you imagine the changes that occurred, like the inventions of the vehicle and, having electricity in your house? Like electricity had been invented, but you weren't necessarily seeing it in use like you see it now. Indoor plumbing. So indoor plumbing, one of the hippie houses that we stayed in didn't have indoor plumbing. It had sinks, the sinks that would work. I assume those were added later, but it didn't have a working bathroom. So you had to use an outhouse. And it never got a working bathroom. It was that way as long as I can remember. And we lived in a house when I was a kid that we had to use an outhouse for. I mean, a really young kid in the 70s. So that's just one example. But there's so much more to it. If you think about all the little things that when they were kids that they needed for like everyday use that just doesn't exist anymore. And that maybe we as kids used every day and it doesn't exist anymore. So for example is answering machines. Like answering machines are obsolete. There is no need for an answering machine anymore. Kids probably don't even exactly know what an answering machine is. But also operators. Y'all remember when we used to call the operator or you could call and you could like make a collect call and you'd be like, Mom, pick me up at the skating rink, or Mom, I'm done. And then that would be your name that showed up. Before that, there were live. You remember the live operators? So the ones that would actually, you'd call 411 and you could like literally talk to someone and say, "Hey, I need to make a call to this, or I need this, or whatever the case is." And she'd be, "Oh, let me see. Let me help you out. Click, 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 click. Oh, here you go." And before that, it used to be they had to use like these plug things. So younger people certainly wouldn't know, but they'd have big switchboard is what it would be called. So a really large electronic looking board. And they would have basically cables that they would plug in and change. Oh, this call is for so-and-so. Let me dial you in. And she would take that plug and she would just move it over to the person's plug. These are small towns. There's only so many people. And then the big cities, I guess it got more difficult. How'd they do that? I don't know back then. Phone books. When was the last time any of y'all cracked open or looked at a phone book? Cell phones changed all this. The other thing is, and I think a lot of this affects how we socialize with people. Because it used to be that when you came home from from work, there were no cell phones. There was one house phone maybe, and that house, some of us might have had like when we were teenagers, had a kids line that the kids had in their bedroom. But for the most part, most people had one line, occasionally two lines. And, we would be on it a lot as teenagers. I can remember being on the phone all night for like 2 hours, something like that. I think it helps your communication skills. I think that helped us. I think that was good for us. I think that kids these days don't know how to have those conversations. They just know how to do it through the internet and through text. I think that's why they have a hard time having other conversations sometimes. And I think it affects critical thinking skills too, because everything is short, sweet, and immediate. You don't have to work anything out. Everything is at a touch of a finger. What sounds awesome until you realize we're raising people that don't know how to think on their own. And I think that's crazy. And like these test scores just came out for these kids that are seniors right now. And it's like the lowest, I think, math and English or math and science. It's like two of them are the lowest scores we've ever had. And I attribute it to the COVID didn't help matters. These are the kids that were in like 7th grade when COVID hit. Okay. And the other thing is, I mean, that did not help the situation. I don't think students ever recovered from COVID. If you have a kid in school, like my kid graduated this last year, and I had 2 kids in school when COVID happened, and it changed everything. It changed how they thought about school. It changed a lot of things. Like some of the things they took advantage, like that were, I guess they didn't realize how cool they were until they lost them. So they really missed out on a lot of cool things the next year because, you know, they had canceled so many things. But more than that, I think they just lost the importance of school. It just, you know, you learn to live without it, I guess. And, you know, the social aspects of it. I think a lot of kids that might have been on the route to really sticking to something and having something they really cared about, like drill team or a sport or whatever, and then they had to take a 6-month break from it. They just kind of lost interest. And then the whole socializing thing, without having a cell phone handy to you, we were passing notes, which I think kids are doing now because I know Texas and a lot of other states had made it a law where they can't have their cell phones in school hours, which I can see pros and cons, but I think that's fine. I understand that. I know I had to get onto my son all the time for playing with his phone in school or my daughter for texting me all day in school. And so I totally respect the idea of the no phones as long as they have access in case there's an emergency and there's a way around that. Okay. But on that note, like I understand that. But these kids, socially speaking, are now being forced to talk and communicate, and everything's not at a touch of a finger. So if they're in class and they need to know how to spell something, or they need to know how, they get a question about the thing, they're going to have to ask the teacher. The teacher's going to have to teach them. They can't rely on them getting it from their phone, basically. And I'm not saying that that's what the teachers were trying to do. I'm just saying that was the reality of the situation. I know that had to help some of the teachers out to a degree. But that's one aspect of just not having the cell phones available. And when I was growing up, beepers came out when I was in high school. And so everybody had a beeper if they had money. And so, for those of you, I know my listeners are all old enough to know how the beepers work and that you had to go find a cell phone. Well, guess what? Now you can't find, not a cell phone, but a payphone. Now you can't even find a payphone. Now you can't even find a payphone. And then you think about all that shit that we used to be able to do when we were growing up. You can't do it anymore. We can't tell our mom that we are going to spend the night with Sarah and then end up in a field partying with our friends because now our parents have trackers on our phones. And they're going to be like, no, you look like you're in a field right now. And I track all your friends and they're in the same field with you. Like, you can't even cover your tracks and be like, oh, leave your phone at your friend's house, because 9 times out of 10, your mom tracks all your friends too. Like, we network as moms and it works out that way. So I think it's like these kids now don't do the things we used to do. So I just don't find that they're going to field parties. And on a Friday night, there's not a carload of them pulling up to go to the teen club or to go cruising or to go, whatever, movies, whatever. It's like the kids do get together, but not in these big groups, not as frequently. I feel like they've lost the art of making lifelong friends. I know my kids, they have some good friends and they have some long-term friends, especially Zane. But I talk to my friends and, none of us have kids that spend the night at other people's houses. We don't have a lot of kids spending the night at our house. When I was growing up, I was never home. We were always somewhere, and time has changed so much in regards to things like that. And so then I started thinking about, okay, those are some of the things that affected teenagers, whatever the case is. But calculators, everybody used their phones for calculators. Are the kids going to have to go back and get calculators, or are they going to learn how to do it? Or do they get to use their laptop for a calculator? I guess they probably can use it, but are the laptop computers going to be as good as an app you could download? I'm curious how that works. And I'm laughing because I found out that a bunch of these kids now, to get around it, to communicate with their parents, they're emailing because they still have computers, so they can still email their parents. So they'll be like, hey, I left my gym pants at home. Bring them to me. And so now moms are having to like check their email for messages from kids. I think it's that, you know what? Pretty smart. I don't really blame them. Disposable cameras. Remember, who has not had 1,000,000 disposable cameras in a fucking drawer waiting for you to look at them, and get them done? When I got divorced, we never had money when I was married. We were just constantly broke. And, I've been divorced like 16, 17 years. And when I got divorced, I had a box of cameras. I'm talking 30 disposable cameras probably that I, had the $10 to buy the camera, but I never seemed to have the money or the time to get them, taken care of. So once I started dating again, I dated this guy and he was like, hey, let me take those cameras for you and I'm going to get them all developed for you. That'll be like my Christmas gift. I think it was a Christmas gift for you. And I was like, oh my gosh, awesome. I have absolutely no idea what's on them. I had absolutely there were so many of them. It cost him like $300 and he went and got all this film developed for me. And it had pictures from high school. And he did this for me when I was in my 30s. And they were not good quality to begin with. If you remember, those disposable cameras are hit or miss, sometimes better quality than other. And most of these were not good quality. But some of them were things I wouldn't have had a picture of. A few of them were from a cruise I took with my mom and my grandmother. So that was cool to get those pictures back. And they were real clear. Some of them were from the kids were little. It was like a plethora of them. If you have those old cameras, you can still get them developed. I found a few more a few years ago. And I took them to Walgreens. And they mail them off now. But they'll mail them off. And you'll get them in like a week or two. And I did get them back. It was pretty cool. So you never know what's in there. Go do it. You don't know what you're missing. Another thing that is missing that we used to see everywhere, alarm clocks. Rick has an alarm clock. He's like the only person I know that still has an alarm clock. I'm like, you have a phone. Well, what if something happens to your phone? What if I break my phone and I don't have an alarm clock? First off, I've never heard the alarm clock go off. He wakes up every day before the alarm. I have never one time heard that alarm clock go off. I wouldn't even know it's set, to be honest with you. So he really doesn't need it. But regardless, we all had alarm clocks. We had multiple alarm clocks. We were so worried our alarm clock wasn't going to go off. Now we got all these cell phones and we can set multiple alarms and all that cool stuff. Address books. Do y'all have address books? No. It's in your computer. It's in your phone. Like, phones have taken the place of so many items. It's crazy. Phone books and yellow things. Okay, so these are not related to the phones and stuff. Oh, well, kind of. TV Guide. Y'all remember TV Guide? Where's that? Y'all remember having to get the newspaper to get all the coupons? And now you pretty much get your coupons online or in the store itself. One thing I hate now, though, that you have to do is they want you to, like, download their store app and to get discounts, and that just pisses me off. Like, I don't need another app. I don't want to have to walk to the store with my phone out and scan barcodes to get a special discount. Like, I cannot deal with it. And I don't know that H-E-B still does it, but they were testing it. I know about a year ago. Actually, it was a year ago they were testing it because I went in there and bought a bunch of pumpkins. Oh, no, it was 2 years ago. It wasn't this one. It was the one before. I bought a bunch of pumpkins because they were like 20% off that weekend. And, I'm going to do that. I'm going to decorate my porch with these pumpkins. So I bought a little more than I was going to buy because they were 20% off. And it was like, scan this barcode and you get the discount. So I was like, okay. I couldn't get it to scan. It would not download onto my phone. I could not get this coupon open. I was like, okay, well, I'm sure they're going to honor it at the register because, H-E-B is full of kings and queens. Like, it's like the best place you've ever been. If you've never been to an H-E-B, if you ever come to Texas and you're not from Texas, go to an H-E-B. Ask a local first which H-E-B to go to. Because, like, if you're in Austin, there's some that are better than others. If you're in Houston, there are some better than others. But get yourself an experience at an H-E-B. But regardless, this is actually a bad experience I had at H-E-B. So I go up to the register. I'm like, hey, I could not get this to work. Can you just honor it or download it or whatever? And they were like, nope, you got to have it work. And they did not honor it. And I was so pissed off. I mean, it's been 2 years and I still remember it. And that is why I don't want to scan shit. I don't want to worry about technology when I'm grocery shopping, okay? If you want to put a coupon like hanging on the shelf and I can grab it, okay. Do not, there is such a thing as too much that you need your phone for. And that's the line I draw. Another thing that you don't see anymore, clotheslines. Remember, your grandma always had a clothesline? Did we all have a grandma with a clothesline? We had a clothesline forever because we didn't have a washer or dryer for a while when I was a kid. And we were washing clothes outside and drying clothes outside. And one of my godmothers, I can remember her washing clothes on a washing board and hanging them out to dry on a washing board. And if you don't know what a washing board is, Google it. It's literally a metal board with a wooden frame, and you would rub your clothes up and down, almost like a cheese grater for clothes without the grating part. And, now thankfully we have washers and dryers. Another one would be the Polaroid cameras. You do see those more and more, I guess, but everyone used to have a Polaroid camera. Or like film for cameras, because now cameras are digital, and I was telling Rick recently that I wanted a nice camera. I was like, I want to get a nice camera so I can take good pictures of the family for special events. And he was like, oh, I have my uncle's camera. Your uncle, the one that died when we met, how old is this camera? He's like, oh, it's a 35 millimeter. I was like you use film? He was like, yeah. I was like, what am I going to do with the film? No, I want... The world's not even set up for that anymore. VHS tapes, DVDs, same thing. No. Can you imagine how much money we spent on CDs and DVDs, and not just buying them, but putting them in a place? You had to buy something to hold them in. You had to have a car holder, a house holder, it had to have a home. That's why I think entertainment centers were so popular. It wasn't necessarily we were trying to hide our TV. It's that we were trying to hide our 5,000 movies that were in the wrong cases. That's what we were trying to hide. Cassette tapes, 8 tracks. Records have always kind of had their thing. They're not what they were in the 70s and the 60s, but they definitely have always had their time and place. People still collect them. I still have a collection of them. But I'm talking CDs and tapes. How much money do we spend on CDs and tapes? And remember, on CDs and tapes, you would go get they'd release the song. You'd be like, oh, okay, I got to have this. And you could go to the mall and you could buy, they had a singles section, and it was the hot single for that band. Okay. So whatever's really popular for that particular band, that's what they would release. That'd be their first single. Right. And so it'd be a song that everybody listened to. And then they'd have a second song, a B-side. It'd be a single, maybe a mixed version of it, 2 versions of it on the front. And then on the back, there'd be this one song, and it'd be a song. It was never a song that they planned to make big. I don't know why. It always seemed like it'd be a really different, weird song. And I'm gonna take some of you, or most of you, are gonna have no clue who this band is. But when I was a freshman in high school, so 1989, I bought the single for Gene Loves Jezebel. Okay, and if you remember Gene Loves Jezebel, they were a alternative-ish English synth-ish rock band. I don't know how to explain Gene Loves Jezebel. And they had this one single called Jealous, and I really love the song Jealous, okay? The backside of that single was a completely different song, and it was a love song. And I loved that song. I loved that song. I have never met anyone that knows that song. And it was called Last Year, I believe. And love that song. Looked for it for years, could not find the song. It was just a random little B-side to a single. And I think that we miss opportunities for those cool little songs. Or remember there used to be a secret track on the end of the CD or the cassette. So Edie Brickell and the New Bohemians had her very first record or cassette, whatever one it is, was Shooting Rubber Bands at the Stars. And if you know Edie Brickell, she sang Circle and What I Am. And she was a Dallas singer. She's now married to Paul Simon. She's much younger than him. I love me some Edie Brickell. Okay. I love the girl. And Edie's song, I bought that shooting rubber band Stars, and it had the hidden track, and it was I Do. To this day, one of my favorite songs. I just posted a reel the other day on Instagram using the song. Love it. And I would have missed that opportunity because we used to have to listen to the whole cassette and the whole, the whole thing. Now, once DVDs became a thing, you could skip songs. You didn't have to listen to the whole thing. You could skip them. But when you had a cassette, it was a lot harder to get to the next song. So you pretty much just listened to the whole cassette. So you would find that you would know every word to every song on that album. Because if it had 3 songs you knew on the album, you knew all 12 on the album because you weren't fast forwarding it from one to the other unless the songs were real close. And so you got to know all the songs. And I don't think kids now know all the songs. I think they primarily know, like maybe if they have a favorite artist, they'll know a little bit more. But other than that, I think they miss the whole experience of, the album itself. And I think that I've noticed in myself, and I heard the other day an interview with, what is his name? Nacho Libre, the guy that plays Nacho Libre. I've gone blank suddenly. Jack Black? Yeah, Jack Black. And I heard an interview with him, and I know he loves music. He's got a band of his own. He's real talented. And Jack Black was saying that he realized that he didn't listen to music much anymore, like at all. That he was only absorbing like podcasts and like TikTok and reels and just real short, quick little entertainment things. And he wasn't getting music anymore. And I have been thinking that about myself lately, that I'm not listening to enough music and I'm listening to too much podcast, TikToks, whatever. So I made a conscious decision the other day to turn off anything for the rest of the day. And if I was going to listen to anything on my phone, it was going to be music. And that was it. That was the only thing I was going to use my phone for was music. And it was so refreshing. And I kind of felt like a weight off my shoulders because I wasn't reading opinions. I wasn't seeing people argue. I wasn't watching a murder mystery. And I don't think I even realized for a long time how long I've been doing it. But I would say like since COVID, I've slowly stopped listening to music as much. And even music I love, I end up just watching clips of stuff instead. And I think that is a combination of factors, but maybe mainly we have like miniature TVs in our hands. We have everything we need to know, everything. Watching TV at the end of the night. When I was growing up, Thursday night, you were watching TV because Thursday night on NBC, there was going to be The Cosby Show. There was going to be maybe A Different World. There was going to be Cheers. Thursday night was a great lineup for TV in the 80s, okay? So every Thursday night, you were going to find everybody sitting at home watching these shows. And then as I got a little bit older, they started that whole TGIF phase. And every Friday night, everybody was watching TV at home. And so it was like a group thing, kind of like when I did the episode talking about being rooted in your neighborhood, and on Friday nights everybody was going to go skating or they were going to go to the football game or whatever. It's kind of the same idea, but you could do this in the city too, and it was about you and your family. Thursday night you were going to sit down and you're all as a family going to watch this show because nobody can go into the other room with their phone and watch something else. Not many people had TVs in every bedroom, much less TVs with cable. And back then, you pretty much had to have cable to watch TV, and otherwise you got we here in Dallas-Fort Worth area, we got channel 4, 5, 8, 11, 13, and then as I got older, we got 21 and then 33 and 39. And that was it. Oh, channel 13 PBS. That was it. That's all the channels we had. We all were watching the same shows. We were all entertained by the same things, and it would force all of us to sit down. And we don't have that anymore. And I think that it definitely has made a difference in family time and bonding and sitting at the dinner table. All these businesses that are open 24/7 now, or at least until real late. When we were growing up, that wasn't a thing. Your mom was not working until midnight at the, grocery store because the grocery store closed at 9. At latest she was getting home at 9:30. But now that's not the case anymore. And all fast food places, all these places that are open so late. When we were growing up, they weren't even open on Sunday. We had the blue law in the South. So those of you that are not familiar with the blue law, because that's one more thing that went away. On Sundays, everything closed. And if they would allow like gas stations to be open, but like if you went into I don't even know if fast food was open on Sundays. I don't think it was. I know like Walmart, Kmart, all that was closed. The only things that were really open were things that sold medicine, and like let's say you went to Walgreens, for example, okay, and Walgreens has that makeup department, and sometimes Walgreens will have or they have like their department of like seasonal items, like I don't know, Halloween is gonna have Halloween decorations. All that's roped off. You're not even allowed near it. You can't buy it. They won't ring it up if you pick it up. The only thing you were allowed to buy were like medicine and food. That was pretty much it. So if you went to any of those places, they might let you in the store if they weren't completely closed. Like Walmart was completely closed. Kmart was completely closed. But like I'm saying, if you went into Walgreens or you went into a grocery store, those would be open. But you could not shop certain aisles, and they would rope them off, and they would merchandise them based off what can sell on Sunday, so they could just rope off the whole section, basically. Can you imagine now doing that? Like it forces families together time. That's what it does, because that means almost every Sunday, everyone in your family is off. And if you're all off, you're going to church, or you're having Sunday dinners, or you're just spending the day together, and you didn't have cell phones. So you were legit spending the day together. You're not hiding in your rooms, and you're not, doing that. You're hanging out together. And I think we have gotten so far from that as a country. And it's really, I think it affects us. I think it affects relationships. I think it affects marriages. I think it affects children having bonds with their parents. In my house, we have a family dinner every night. And, most nights, most people sit at the table. But, I do have to reel them in sometime. But my son will try to go in his room every night, and I'll have to pull him back in. Like, I think that family time is important. That's when you get to know what's going on in each other's lives, just kind of what's going on, I guess, in general. Some of the other things that have changed are going to be like foods. Okay, so I was thinking about all the like foods that don't exist anymore and that kind of stuff. So, Jell-O stuff. You remember when we were kids, everybody was making Jell-O molds and shit? Why? Who liked that? I can remember people showing up with a Jell-O mold, and I'd be like, why? Even then, I was like, I do not want pears in my Jell-O. I like pears. I don't want it in my Jell-O. I don't want a cherry in my Jell-O. I certainly don't want anything else in meats or weird shit. And you'd see some weird shit in Jell-O. I'm talking like pimento. Y'all remember that? I know you've seen pimento in it. It's disgusting. Another thing, TV dinners and trays. Y'all remember when TV dinners would come in those metal trays because you'd stick them in the oven because we didn't have microwaves, and you'd have to wait 45 minutes for your TV dinner to heat up because that's real fast. And Tang. You remember Tang being a big thing? High C. I don't know. Do kids still drink High C? I mean, Tang. I don't see as much of it. I know that's not as big a thing. Spam loaves. My dad will still throw down some Spam, but it was a bigger deal in the 80s. Now, liver and onions. Did your mom make you eat liver and onions? Mine did. Disgusting. I don't really know many people that eat liver and onions anymore. And the only thing I can think of is it was really cheap at some point, like during the Depression. And they were like, okay, well, I guess we're going to have to eat the liver. Let's throw some onions just to make it as bad as we can. And let's keep eating this for 50 more years just to punish our next 50 years of generation of family. Because if we had to eat it, so do they. That's my thought. Ambrosia salad. I'm not going to lie, y'all. I love a good ambrosia salad. It's got to be a good one. They're not all equal, But yeah, I like myself a good ambrosia salad to this day. My great aunt used to make what we called green thing, and it was kind of an ambrosia. I think it has another name too. I'm trying to think of what the other name is. We called it green stuff or green thing, and it's like green Jello and cottage cheese and maybe some pineapple in there. I don't know. And it looked gross, y'all. It looked gross. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Tore it up. To this day, if my Aunt Betty called me and said, right now, I got some green stuff over here, I would be heading that way. Cannot remember the last time I saw it, heard about it, thought about it, anything. It's like, it's just kind of gone. Like this, people don't make that anymore. But I bet she would if I asked her to. All those things. Think about all those things that don't exist anymore and how those things can change your life, because encyclopedias, like when we were growing up, you had to have an encyclopedia. So if you were doing work, if you didn't have encyclopedias at home, you had to go to the library in school and just hope you finished it in time. There was no internet. I mean, you could ask your parents, but what did they know about dates and stuff? And remember when we wrote our term papers, we would have to cite our sources, and it'd be like page, chapter 6 in the Encyclopedia Britannica, book N for, the letter N, page 16. We'd have to cite the sources. And now kids are like, Chat GPT, Google, and we had to like work for it. And I'm not giving them a hard time because, we had to work for it. I'm just saying we legit had to work for it and they don't. And I guess there's pros and cons of that because they have so much easy information at the tips of their fingers that we had to work for. So we gave up sometimes and never got the answer, or we didn't have a way to fact check that, or to see different opinions, or to dig deeper if we wanted more information about that fact. It was a lot of work to learn, is what I'm saying. It was a lot of work to learn. And I think it's crazy now that kids' test scores are so much lower when it's so much easier to get information that they don't learn it because they don't need to, because they can always just Google it. I feel like kids now are just taught to pass a test. That's it. They're just taught to pass a test, and then they're done with that information. And it does a disservice to them. And it's great that they have everything at the tip of their fingers. It would just also be great if they could also get, be taught to critically think more. And I'm hoping taking the cell phones for them will do this, but as long as there's also computers, maybe not. Maybe not. Another thing, and this is that was a lighter note. Everything I just talked about was a lighter note. And there's many more things I could talk about. We could go on all the things that don't exist anymore. But something else that doesn't happen anymore, and that is keeping politics at home. And, when we were growing up, you didn't know what other people voted. You didn't know about politics, and I preferred it that way. And I understand when you feel like you need to go march and you need to like stand up for something and things are important. I just feel like we've lost sight of what's important because it's just a matter of what's shocking us today. And it's become a thing where politicians, and I'm talking across the board, both sides equally, instead of taking care of their people and taking care of this country, has become about pointing fingers and blaming others, and everything has red tape. Like, oh, you want me to pass this bill? Then I'm going to put this in it so I can get my way with this. Why are we not making everything separate? Why can't we just genuinely discuss and fix everything individually instead of throwing in something in with something else? Why do we need to, like in Texas, the vote for the flood relief for the floods that we had on Guadalupe, which were people's lives have been destroyed, not just the ones that died. And it's horrible. And that is obviously the biggest victim in this situation. But there are a lot of families that lost everything they owned and can't recoup that anytime easily, and so we had a bill for that, and they threw all this other shit on the bill. And so it created a problem getting it passed to take care of these people that need it. And the other shit had nothing to do with taking care of these people. Why are we not just taking care of these people? Why are we using that moment in time, knowing that we need to take care of these people? Why are we tacking anything onto that might slow that down so that we can gain some kind of political leverage? Well, I know you're going to want to, I know you don't want to be the asshole that doesn't pass that for these people. So you better sign off on this. Why? Why are we even doing that? Our politicians work for us. They work for us. And I think that as American people, I think 99% of American people get along with anyone no matter what side of aisle they fall on if they're allowed to A, keep politics at home, or B, able to have conversations and not look up and see their politician playing games. Because when the politicians are the one creating this rhetoric that we have going on right now by playing these games, both sides of them, they make everything a game and everything he said, she said, and we have lost our way. And we have become so hateful. And I mean, everybody has become so hateful because all we're doing is being fed negative about the other side. Negative. And everything's spun both ways, left and right, spinning it to fit their narrative before they put it out there. And and then your algorithm picks up what you're reading, and then that's all they shove down your throat. And it is all you learn. And that goes both ways. I'm going to keep saying that. I am not pointing fingers either direction. It is all over the board. And unfortunately, about an hour ago, one of these political pundits that is on there speaking all the time, Charlie Kirk, has been murdered. And that is fucking insane. And no one should be getting killed. Nobody on either side. Nobody should be hurting someone based on politics. We are better than that, America. We are better than that. And as long as we keep playing this stupid ass game, because you can twist anything you want to about anybody and make it fit a narrative. You can. And that's exactly what's going on. And that's why it's so polarizing on both sides, because both sides are being fed polarizing bullshit about the other side. And at the end of the day, I'm going to walk out this door and I'm going to see my neighbor that I really like, who has completely opposite opinion than I do about politics. And I'm going to say hi to her and greet her and genuinely be happy to see that she's healthy and that she's doing well, because that's the real America. That's really what we do here. We care about each other. I can't fathom a world where I don't care about someone because of what side their fence that they're on. And I also need to put in perspective the fact that these people, they're getting fed things different than what things I'm getting fed, but we're both getting fed. And we're not getting fed with homemade mama's cooking. We're getting fed with bullshit. They're shoving shit down our throat and we're eating it up because it fits our agenda. And we need to both sides, take a real good long look, because look at what's going on in this world. There are 2 children without their father right now. And, I'm not a Charlie Kirk fan. I'm not. I'm not, but that is horrible. No one deserves that. Absolutely nobody deserves that. And I think that we really need to start looking at what we put out there. We need to start looking at the energy that we put out there. Okay. And, I will do my best to do that. And I hope you do too. I really do hope you do too. I hope that we can take this as an opportunity to look at how much this world has changed and understand that sometimes it's not for the better. And it's really cool to have that cool cell phone and be able to have everything at the tip of the finger. But everybody listening to this podcast that lived in the 70s and 80s and the early 90s, what I want you to think about is, wouldn't you love to raise your kids in that? Wouldn't you love your kids to have gotten that childhood you got prior to cell phones? Wouldn't you love that? Before the internet, when your kids were playing outside riding bikes and, you're running into the forest with your buddies and building a tree house and, you're toilet paper in people's houses and no one's getting shot and you're just being kids and you're having fun. And I think we've lost our way because it's so easy to be behind a keyboard and be a smartass. It's so easy to Google and think you just fact check someone when in fact they could Google and they can find it to match their agenda too. All we're doing is breaking this country up, and it's become divisive as shit. And I blame all the people currently in D.C., every one of them, and the ones in all our capitals, in Austin, I blame all of them, left and right, because they're all doing it. They're all doing it. And they work for us, and they're dividing us for a vote, for a donor. And I think it's time that we take it back. And I don't know how to do that other than to tell people to start self-reflecting on what you're putting out there and start understanding that the other side of the fence feels just as strong as you do about what they're convicted on, because they're getting fed something too. It's just different. We're all getting fed something. Unless you don't have the internet, you're not, then you're getting fed something. And even the ones that don't have an internet are still getting it because they're driving by and seeing flags. They're sitting in coffee houses and they're sitting in bars and they're at work and they're hearing it. Everybody's hearing it, you know? So all I can say is eventually as American citizens, we're going to get tired of this and we're either going to do something about it or we're going to be consumed by it. And I guess we got to decide what side of history we want to be on. But I can tell you right now, I don't want to be on the side of history that is pro people getting hurt, are dying. And I think both sides of the coin right now have that going on. And I think that it's time that we really do what we can do for us. And so I'm asking y'all to self-reflect. And I definitely have been doing self-reflection myself. And this is, not just about the fact that I stopped listening to music, but about the fact that I know that I'm getting fed stuff just like everybody else is. And I need to understand that. And I hope that everybody else sees that. I think it's real easy to look at this and just be mad at everybody. And we just can't. We can't live like that. I cannot live my life being mad at everybody all the time. So I'm going to ask that everybody really think about it and do what you can. And that's all I got for you today. It's real hard to be funny after that. I find this whole situation to be extremely sad. And on top of that, Rick, as usual, cue the weed eater. The man cannot just be quiet in the garage. So I think that means the show's over, is what I think. So if you could, follow me, like me, listen to me, all those good things. And I do want to say this, though. I had somebody message me about 3 weeks ago saying that they would help me out with some stuff on the podcast. They had some free time and they'd be interested in help me. And this isn't for you, Missy, because I know about you and I'm working on it. But somebody else. And so I needed some moderators and a little help on something. So whoever that was that messaged me, I cannot find your message or remember who it was. I just have gone blank on who it was. And I swear I've poured through my messages, but I get a lot of messages. And I really try to answer all y'all. If I ever don't answer someone, I really just got too many at that time or somehow missed it, or I meant to go back to it and I forgot it. I really try to get back to everybody, and it really is me getting back to you, so it does take a little bit of time. But that's one thing. I do appreciate them, though. And some of the things some of y'all tell me is just so... You're so open, and I know it's because I am so open that on the show that you feel like you can be. And I want you to know that I take it serious every time y'all do it. So anyone that sends me messages like that or whatever, I want you to know it's me that's reading them. I'm truly reading them and absorbing them. I don't always feel like I have the right words for them in a response. I'm no doctor, y'all. I'm just a 50-year-old white woman that likes to put pumpkins on her front porch, okay? That's just who I am. But I am reading it, absorbing it. I will give you my opinion to the best of my ability, and it makes me feel bad when I don't get back to somebody. The other thing that I'm going to ask for y'all to do for me, okay, is I can't really promote the podcast on the other podcast, okay? So a lot of y'all have found me because of the Kid Craddock, but a lot of y'all didn't find me until much later because of the Kid Craddock show and me doing Al's podcast, because I don't promote it on the podcast of Al. And the reason I don't do that is that we are owned by Yeah Networks and produced by Yeah Networks on the other podcasts, and I own this one. And I don't know if that's kind of stepping on toes to be like, hey, listen to me, you know what I mean? And I know they support me and they're all good and everything. It's just I know I'm supported at this level. I don't know what they think of above that, And so I'm kind of careful about it. I know they don't care if I do a little bit and that kind of stuff. So what I'm asking of y'all is for y'all to get the word out to other Kid Nation listeners that they might enjoy this show. And so I did, if you could maybe mention it, if you're on one of their pages. Like I know they have the Kid Nation page on Facebook, which I follow and I read sometimes. I know that they have the little thing where the live show, the Twitch in the morning, and people are on the little Twitch and everything. If you could just let people know, it'd be awesome. If I came up and you could be, hey, by the way, y'all, she has a podcast. This is the name of it. Here's a link. That would be awesome. I really need my current listeners to let other Kid Nation listeners know, because I get at least 2 messages a week from Kid Craddock Show listeners saying, hey, I wish I'd known about you before. Why are you not, how did I not know this? I've been listening to the other podcasts forever. Well, that's why, because I don't want to step on toes and bring it up. But you can do it for me. So if you want to step on a toe, put that word out there for me. I would super appreciate it if you could just promote me in any of those Kid Nation things. And again, it's Zeta Owens on Facebook, which is where I'm most active. On Instagram, it's ZMamacita. And also under Bless Your Heart, I'm Talking on Instagram. Printify, if you would like to look at the merch, Zeta-Owens Printify, something like that. But I have the link. I post a link all the time. Anyways, that's it. Love y'all. Thanks for listening. And let's look at this next week. If you're praying top, say some prayers for his family and for him. No one deserves that. And, say a prayer for our country. We need it as a country. We can't keep going like this, y'all. We are better than this, and we cannot keep getting divided by a bunch of men that don't have our best interest at heart. I know we're better than that. And until next week, I'll talk to you later.